Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Our esteemed panelists, Mr. Himanshu Srivastava, our guest speakers, Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director, VDMA India, and the moderator of the panel discussion. A hearty welcome to all of you in today's webinar on the CEO panel discussion on the impact of stimulus measures on manufacturing industry, organized by the VDMA India. We hope all you and your families and employees are all safe and doing well. I'm Sandeep Roy, based out of Calcutta office of VDMA, and will be taking you through the initial part of the today's webinar. Before we enter the main phase of the webinar, a very brief introduction on VDMA. Slide, please. Yeah.
Yeah, continue, Sandeep.
Slide, please.
Just continue, Sandeep.
The VDMA is a largest industrial association in Europe with more than 3,300 of members, and it was established on 127 years before. VDMA for the functional perspective is divided into 38 engineering verticals, and VDMA has offices across the globe, particularly in the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The Indian office acts as a bridgehead between the India and Germany in improving the bilateral trade in engineering sectors. And further friends, before we continue, we would like to remind all of you that you can post all your questions during the webinar under the question section, and then it would be answered during the question and answer session. Coming back to the today's webinar, friends, you are all aware that the Indian government has recently announced and hoping 20 lakhs crore stimulus package to revive the country's economy, which has been severely hit by the COVID-triggered lockdown. To have more details on this subject, it is our pleasure to welcome Mr. Himanshu Srivastava, our guest speaker. Mr. Srivastava heads the Business Advisory Services vertical at ASA and Associates LLP, a 30-year-old accounting and consulting firm with a team of more than 700 professionals spread across 8 offices in India. His office responsibilities include end-to-end business strategy and project management directed at facilitating foreign investment into India and assisting the foreign companies to set up and operate in India. Himanshu recently received his certification to help the German companies in India through Gesellschaft für International Zusammenarbeit, better known as the GIZ, after spending several weeks in Mannheim, Germany. Over to you, Mr. Srivastava.
Well, thank you very much. I really thank VDMA, Mr. Rajesh Nath, and all my fellow panelists and the audience. I'm very privileged to be speaking here. Unfortunately, due to some technical reason, you may not be able to see my webcam, but I would try to compensate with my voice. So if you can put up my presentation, I would straight away go into the slides.
Yeah, continue, Himanshu. We are just trying to get the slides on. You can continue
Fine.
in the meantime. Yeah.
So my today's topic is, as you would see from my slides, I'm primarily focusing on the impact on manufacturing sector about the economic stimulus package announced by the government of India. So this is specifically, I've tried to analyze the provision which would be beneficial to manufacturing side. And I hope you're all conversant with this, but I would probably be covering certain basic facts just to set the background, and then I would present my analysis. So yeah, as we all know, last a week ago, Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, he addressed the nation on May 12th and announced special economic and comprehensive packages nearly to the tune of 20 lakh crore. Enough zeros there, but roughly comes out to be about 20 trillion INR, and it's considered to be equivalent to about 10% of India's GDP. In his vision, he's trying to identify 5 pillars of self-reliant India. In Hindi, we call it Atmanirbhar Bharat, which are primarily the economy, infrastructure, system, vibrant demography and demand. And this package caters to various sections and various aspects of the economy, paying much more emphasis, in my view, to the manufacturing or MSMEs, which form the backbone of the Indian economy. So I did the rough check, and I noticed that MSME constitute the second largest contributor to employment in India, roughly 10%. The first being agriculture, which is much more ahead of at around 40%. So in that way, MSMEs form backbone of the economy. Next slide, please. So in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about more, let's say, as it has been defined in the package. I've tried to relate MSMEs with the manufacturing sector. Next slide, please. So this is the definition of MSME. As you can see, I would not go into the details, but I'll broadly cover that the government has really tried to finish the distinction between manufacturing and service-related SMEs, and have widened the scope of MSMEs enterprises. For instance, you see all enterprises with investment up to 10 million or a turnover of 50 million will be qualified as micro enterprises. Similarly, up to 200 million investment and less than 1,000 million would fall into the category of medium enterprises. Now, the principle of turnover along with investment in the definition of MSME is, in my view, is a move to further ease doing business in India. And I feel it would certainly lead to inclusion of more units under MSME. So there was a bit of anxiety in the MSME community as to if they cross a particular threshold, they lose the benefits which they otherwise are entitled to as MSME. So government has really tried to remove that anxiety and expanded the whole horizon for SMEs. And in this package, if I were to kind of conclude, is that the government has really taken initiative to help MSMEs fight against liquidity crunch, because these are difficult times. So through extension of emergency credit from banks and NBFCs, next slide please. Through emergency credits for banks and NBFCs, basically it's a two-way benefit scheme in which MSMEs which are hit hard by COVID-19 crisis can tackle with a temporary liquidity stress. So as announced by the finance minister, the government will offer loan worth 3 trillion as collateral-free automatic loan to MSME, with an outstanding loan of 250 million or annual turnover of 1 billion rupee. These loans will be offered for a tenure of 4 years and will have 12 months moratorium period. And this is very important. So, also the eligible enterprises do not have to furnish new collateral to avail this loan. So, and the government will step in to provide complete credit guarantee cover to lenders on principal and interest amount. So this is a very important announcement to ease the liquidity crisis and give much support to this particular sector. Although this scheme is very short-lived, as in until only 31st October 2020. The government has also it's very heartening to see that the government has announced equity infusion or support through equity in MSMEs, and they have created a 500 billion INR funds of fund. So it's very important to infuse equity capital into the SMEs, because too much debt, in my view, distorts investment incentives. Also, it may lead to debt trap, and debt alone, in my view, will not lead to increased investment. So it's a very important measure. Next, as you would see that government has also tried to be very vocal for the local. So in that's a coin word, is that the COVID-19 impacts have brought highlight over local supply chain. India has always been able to sustain pandemic due to very high local supply component. So therefore, it is very imperative to strengthen the local produce or local manufacturing sector. So this announcement that tenders for government procurement will no longer be open for global companies in projects worth up to 200 crores or 2 billion rupee which will bar global procurement of tenders, is very much largely aimed at boosting the business and giving a lot of opportunities to MSMEs. And this would create a very fair level playing field for MSMEs and cut out unfair competition from foreign companies for, in terms of technology or financial backing. Further, MSMEs declared NPAs or those under financial stress will also be eligible for equity support. Therefore, and as I've mentioned in my slide also, that the public sector enterprises will try and release all pending MSMEs payment within 45 days to help them survive liquidity crunch. So as you would see, these all initiatives are likely to boost manufacturers in India, would cut down on import dependence, thereby across the sector it will help improve quality standards and compliances, and maybe India will be able to gain share of global market. Next slide, please. So then I have covered certain important labor reforms. I'm sure you must have all read, but then just to give a gist of it, is that government has relaxed various provisions such as statutory employee provident fund contribution norms have been relaxed, and in order to ensure more take-home salary for employees, the EPF contribution for employers and employee has been reduced to 10%, which was earlier 12%. And further, government is disbursing and shall continue to disburse EPF contribution both of the employer and employees, which is roughly earlier 12%, now 10% of total period from March to August for organization employing 90% employees at a wage of less than 15,000 per month. So currently the minimum wage clause is applicable only to 30%. This would henceforth be 90%. And government has also made certain amendments in terms of ensuring uniformity to ensure timely and minimum payment of wages, making the concept of ESI applicable to pan India, and introducing this national floor wage concept. Similarly, protecting fixed term contracts, as some of the industry use primarily fixed term contracts, so government has really tried to insulate fixed term workers also from this impact. Next slide, please. This is very much what I've written is what I have to tell you is that because of this important change, there would be a lot of safety for the manufacturing companies, primarily because there was stress default was happening, and there were too much of anxiety as to whether these MSME will be able to survive the crisis, because insolvency and bankruptcy code had a very minuscule limit of 100,000 rupees, which have been revised to 10 million rupees. Similarly, government has said that there would be no further initiation of insolvency proceedings up to 1 year, and there will be an announcement shortly regarding some special scheme of insolvency framework for MSMEs. Further, very important thing is that since this pandemic started, all the COVID-19 related debt during this period will be excluded from the definition of default. So no supplier can actually, once gradually this pandemic will be over, so no supplier will be able to use that portion of the debt as a default to initiate the insolvency proceedings. Next slide, please. So I noticed, and I'm sure you also must have, is that government has really given a special focus on reform. If you really see the combination of an Atmanirbhar Bharat with the integration with the global supply chain, very truly inspiring. The package announced talked big on much needed reforms in core sectors. I read agriculture, mining, defense, public health, education, and more. So these reforms will certainly be very favorable for the future of our economy. Specifically, coming to the manufacturing industry, like automobile, has been one of the worst hit sectors. So owing to pressure from prolonged slowdown and further from unprecedented pandemic, there are much concern in manufacturing sectors. So in my view, an accelerated infrastructure spend in rural area or rural India will certainly create more assets, jobs, an income in rural India probably would, boost demand by creating movement of goods, and also would boost manufacturing industry. So the government is also working on the next phase of ease of doing business. Finance Minister was very vocal about it. There are various reforms relating to registrations, incorporation, investing in India. And what I noticed, and of course, you might have also observed, that this stimulus package has been very well timed and has been strategized to push in reforms. So if you see, it was otherwise very challenging or nearly impossible to push through land reforms, labor reforms, reforms in traditional industries such as coal and mining, or FDI in defense, a very controversial topic. Due to these, I'm sure if these reforms are kind of introduced and they are implemented on ground zero, I think due to these, India would definitely benefit tremendously from global manufacturing shifting base away from China and South Korea, as we've been reading in the media also. So it's a very important change, and the whole package of stimulus is very large, and one must appreciate the intent of the government. It primarily to expand domestic manufacturing and using the crisis to become part of global supply chain. So in my view, this drive would certainly make the country move in the direction of self-reliance, as this package talks about, and this will really prove to be a boost for local manufacturing. I would move on to the next slide now. So there are certain statutory relief. I'm sure as enterprises, we are all taking care of this, but for the sake of brevity, I've just included certain tax reforms and also certain reforms in the corporate law sector. So these are all very important to ease out compliance burden on all companies, not just manufacturing, all companies, so that they can focus to the core area. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So these were my few thoughts as to if we really have to take away certain points from the stimulus package and also from these continuing pandemic, is that these are 7 points which I think are very critical to any organization. Is that one must now, or by now, should have business continuity planning, and that should remain as a focus. Survival is most important. So this would be the time to support your vendors, your suppliers, so that you are able to continue your business once this pandemic is over. Like us, I'm sure you are prioritizing your customers' core need. We are anticipating their change in demand patterns, improve our quality, and also wherever possible invest in R&D, because next phase would be totally different. Then we must ensure that our supply chain is resilient, and we don't let the supply issues impact. The moment this lockdown or this crisis is over, there will be a surge of demand. So we all should be ready to meet that demand, and in order to retain our customers and various parameters to do business with other organizations. Equally important is to protect our workforce to be able to revive operations and also to keep them productive. Because of lockdown, I'm sure many of industries are struggling to start up. But then the productivity is something that we cannot compromise with. And even during lockdown, people are working from home. Everyone is struggling just to ensure that levels don't fall. Then there is system resilience, or investing in digitally enabled workplace. Investing in technology infrastructure, or exploring e-commerce platform, because now meetings and movement for meetings will be restricted. So one must harness the technology to see how they can use digital platform to expand their business development, or conclude contracts. And of course, some of the things would now move on to digital platform, maybe servicing or kind of customer care. And I kind of mentioned it, long-term view on reinventing. We no longer can rely on the traditional way of doing business. We need to reinvent the business now, because there would be new opportunities, new areas to take up, which might be complementary by forward or backward integration or reinvesting in the resources, be it manpower, be it technology, research and development capability. So there is one must have a relook on reinventing and reinvesting. And of course, the bottom line is that cash is critical. So all these measures have their own advantage, but important is that you remain liquid and you remain in business. So cash is critical. Next slide, please. So yeah, so that primarily is conclusion, and I think I've been able to finish just in time. I hope, Mr. Nath, that's okay. But I remain available for any question that you may have. So I'll pass on the baton to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Himanshu, for the good overview on the stimulus package and for highlighting also the certain aspects of the package. And I think it was very relevant for the manufacturing industry also. So Himanshu, we will now start with the panel discussion. But before that, we would just like to ask our audience, and we'll launch the first poll. So the first poll is, just give it a minute. Yes. What do you think about the timing of the stimulus package? It should have been announced earlier, or this is the right time to announce the stimulus package? We'll just wait for the audience to give their response. Yeah. Another couple of seconds and then we'll close the poll. Yes, we can close the poll now. So friends, if we see the result of this poll, in fact, it was a close fight, but I think majority of the people feel that it's appropriate time to boost business. So I think, Himanshu, as you mentioned also, perhaps the poll has come in the right time to boost business, and 56% feel that, and 44% feel that it could have been announced earlier. So that is the poll results. Now, friends, a hearty welcome to all our esteemed panelists today and all our participants at this VDMA CEO's panel discussion on impact of stimulus measures on manufacturing industry. We have an illustrious panel with us consisting of Mr. Sunil Gupta, President, Kion India Private Limited. Welcome to you, Sunil ji. Then we have Mr. P.N. Muthusekhar, Managing Director, Nord Drive Systems Private Limited. Welcome, Mr. Muthusekhar. Always a pleasure to have you with us on the panel. We also have Mr. Hemant Watwem, Managing Director and CEO of Vilo, Mathur and Plutt. Welcome to you, Hemantji. And then we have Mr. Anil Kumar, Managing Director, Sirati Z India. Welcome to you, Anil. Good to have you also in the panel with us this time. One of our panelists, Mr. Vivek Norman, who was to join us, had some technical issues, so he's not able to join us presently. Friends, last Tuesday, government announced the much awaited and anticipated 20 lakh crore stimulus package, which is equivalent to around 750 billion euros. And this is to weather the fallout of the pandemic. Now, Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, or Self-Reliant India Mission, is about 10% of India's GDP in 2019-20. And the stimulus package would rank behind Japan, USA, Sweden, Australia, and Germany. However, friends, unlike the other relief packages which have been announced globally, this rupees 20 lakh crore is not entirely in new spending and includes 1.7 lakh crore package the government had announced in March, as well as the steps taken by the Reserve Bank of India, such as liquidity enhancing measures and interest rate cuts. The basis of the stimulus package is strengthening of 5 pillars, what the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned: economy, infrastructure, systems, demography, and demand. And this is anticipated to pave the way for India returning to higher sustained growth path again. However, friends, there is a feeling among if you read the papers, if you talk to people, there's a general feeling that the stimulus package is more of a jugglery of numbers and the direct benefit is perhaps limited. So let us dwell. So our panel discussion today is to delve a little deeper into these measures and also to see what our esteemed panelists, who are also CEOs of leading companies in their field, feel about the stimulus package. Now, my first question coming to Mr. Sunil Gupta. Sunilji, the MSME contributes about 29% of GDP and 40% of the exports and employs roughly 11 crore people. Now, MSME has been badly hit due to the COVID-19 and needs additional funding to meet the operational liabilities, buy raw material and restart business. The government will infuse 50,000 crores for MSMEs as well as 3 lakh crore collateral free loans, which will benefit 45 lakh standard MSMEs. Now, Sunilji, in your opinion, are these steps adequate to support the MSMEs? What do you feel about this, Sunilji?
First of all, Rajesh, thank you very much for inviting me to this important discussion. And although there are a lot of things has been discussed around that, but I would like to give you my peace of mind on this.
Right.
I think the centerpiece of the government revival plan for MSME is this 3 lakhs crore lending facility, which is equivalent to around 15% the total package which government has announced. At the same time, if you equate it, it is about 10 times of what was provided for the similar work in 2018-19 by the government. I mean, to support the MSMEs. So I think the liquidity infusion of this size can significantly help MSME, and to me, it's adequate. But at the same time, due to the stay-at-home lockdown, MSMEs were hoping for more in terms of perhaps cash handouts, direct payment to employees for the wages, or the tax waivers. But instead, government is telling them to borrow something more through this package. So I think this is need to be balanced. Both this part need to be balanced. And if we address the challenges around this package, then perhaps it could be very well balanced.
Right.
I feel the first challenge is the eligibility issue. As you know, this particular package is available to the existing loan. You can borrow around 20% more. A unit count which is stated around 45 lakhs, as announced by the FM, or 4.5 million, is a fraction of MSMEs in India. According to the government numbers, we all know there are around 63 million MSMEs in India,
Right.
which is accounting for about 28% of GDP and 30% of the Indian labor force.
Right.
And with a change in the definition, as we have just heard, with a change in the definition MSME, this number, in my opinion, should be close to 65 million as of now. Thus, there is a very clear need to make it broad-based. I mean, only with helping a scheme which is covering around 4.5 million to a base of around 65 million, I think that would not be adequately addressed. I mean, that brings us to the second challenge, which will maybe having answered the first challenge. I think that's the size. The past definition of larger firm is now being considered as MSMEs. We know that larger firms now, because of the definition change, they have come to now in MSMEs.
Right.
They account for greater share of the borrowing in the banking system, and could crowd out the smaller players for this additional working capital facility which the government is providing. Banks on their parts prefer to deal with a larger account than processing 20, 30, 40 smaller accounts. We need to be quite careful about it, because out of the 65 million MSMEs, I think 95% are micros. They are very small people, and we need to live that. And that brings us to, I think, the third and the last hurdle, which could be the absence of demand. No business would like to borrow the additional money without having consumption visibility or demand, as this will not make any business sense to anybody. Thus, while liquidity is important, I fully agree liquidity is one of the most important part of the business, but I think demand is also very critical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sunilji. We have also Mr. Vivek Norman, Managing Director, Next Technologies India, who's joined. Welcome, Vivek. Vivek, let me take on.
Hey, Rajesh, thanks.
Yeah, take up this question with you also, Vivek. We were talking about the stimulus package by the government and its impact on the MSMEs, Vivek. So my question to you is also, Vivek, do you think this stimulus package, what the government has announced, is it sufficient for our MSMEs, and will it, in actual, when we look at the ground level, will it help the MSMEs, Vivek?
It will definitely be of help. The question is about how much is much is always going to be a questionable thing. My previous colleague did give a lot of statistics around it, and I think he nailed it at the baseline to say, hey, I need money because I need to serve a demand, and if the demand is not going to be there, what do I do with the money? But it also put into cognizance something that I heard pretty recently. Many companies are really having to relook at the stability of their liquidity rather than focusing on their sales and P&L as only elements. And I think it brings over the point of net working capital as a key measure for most of these companies in that. So subject to the fact that there is a demand, pushing in cash to these people definitely will give that. What I also read and heard about is the default rate on banking loans, business loans, is the lowest in the MSME sector.
Right.
So from a strategic spending point of view, yes, it is a low risk push because the default rates are low, which also kind of gives that there is some strength there. I mean, we all come from background of German companies, and the Mittelstand German companies are the spine of the German economy. And I think here's an opportunity for us to trigger that. When you support these companies to get back on their feet and get that working capital in place, obviously the whole value chain in terms of whoever are the supporting industries like logistics and all are going to be served. Right. Now, another element of this package is also this capability to participate in these tenders on the 200 crore cap and all of that. You know, we have to read into the fine print of what that brings. But, you know, from the few segments that applies to us for our company, to take notable examples, where we are participating in global tenders, and if they tell that you cannot do that, well, there are no alternative vendors for that. Well, it throws open a challenge to the market that, hey, why don't you get ready to manufacture locally? Up your game, improve your local capabilities. So some of these companies who are used to participating from abroad might rethink to come into India to be able to participate. So it will create room for employment, bring in cash, and I think those are the baselines, I think. So in essence, with all those statistics, yes, it is a good measure.
Very good. So I think if I was to sum up what Sunil and Vivek mentioned, that these are steps in the right direction. And I think one very important point, which is not so well known, because there is a general impression that the MSMEs default on loans. In fact, as per statistics, it is one of the lowest rate of default from the MSMEs. So surely I think this is a step in the right direction. And taking further the point, perhaps what Vivek raised, Anil, let me come to you. Now, one of the announcements has also been that the government has announced that there will be no global tender for global procurements up to 200 crores. Now, Anil, again, this will also should help to give a boost to the MSME sector so that they can also participate in such tenders and in the government procurement process. So, Anil, what is your views on this? Anil, can you hear us? Yeah. Anil, you're muted. Can you just unmute yourself?
I think the admin has to unmute, Rajesh.
Yeah, we are just checking that. 1 minute. Anil, can you just try from your end? Because from here we are not able to. Yeah, just try now. Yes. Now I think should be fine. Yeah.
Now it's okay.
Yeah.
I agree with the views, and since investment is or promotion is one part, so a lot of benefits and a lot of facilities are given to SMEs. At the same time, we think that from where the demand will come. So this is also one point from where the demand will come. So this is also a good initiative from the department, from the government, that they have allowed the tenders with such a big value to be localized, and definitely SMEs will play a major role here. So this will definitely boost their productivity and will also create a demand.
Right. Anil, if I were to just go one step deeper there, Anil. Now you are also getting getting supplies from many MSMEs also. When we are looking into that aspect, Anil, from the quality point of view, because here we may be talking of certain projects which would need certain bit of precision. So do you feel our MSMEs are geared up to deliver that bit of quality and precision, Anil?
So here, see, the user or the demand, the person who has the demand has to really look into the facilities. So some of the SMEs are really having good facilities, good machines, may not be micro ones, but the other units, they have a reasonable quality of the machines, and there we can get this. And here, since we have to promote Make in India also, I think the companies will also have to play a major role. They have to help these people to develop components and all that. And they have there is a possibility and they have the capability to give the desired results. So
Right.
again, it depends on the requirement. So what kind of requirements is there? There are so many industries out there with so many facilities. So we have to choose and start getting the things done.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Anil. And going further from there to Mr. Muthusekar and Mr. Hemant Wadhwe. Now, Make in India flagship will emerge as the key catalyst for attracting new investment, driven by some bold reforms in the areas of land, labor, and liquidity. Now, some of the states in India, like UP, MP, Gujarat, have already announced labor reforms, and Karnataka is also in this process. Hemantji and Mr. Muthusekar, let me start maybe with Mr. Muthusekar. Do you feel this would boost the Make in India program, Mr. Muthusekar and Hemantji?
Definitely, first of all, I want to thank VDMA, Mr. Rajesh Nath, and our co-panelists. Thanks for the opportunity. And Himanshu, gave a good overview.
Right.
I have only a couple of points before, specifically going to your answer. Is MSMEs are like, if you refer our national cricket game, it is like, the most of the match winnings are happening only through singles and twos. And MSMEs are basically like that ones and twos. It is not the 6 and 4s always wins the matches. So it needs to be. And if you look at the MSMEs, what is the strength is basically it attracts a lot of youth as employment, women force is employed, less automation, and the levels of risk is very less. And you all mentioned that the credit rating is much better, the defaults are very less. So it is a very good recipe for the success of the nation. And if it is in a reverse pyramid, and if it is not addressed properly, it is also a recipe for a disaster. So again, a specific point, land reform, yes, it's very important because compared to most of the countries, India's, the land parcels are very expensive. Even European, comparably, ours is very high. In fact, one of my suggestions is that we have about 3,336, industrial parks, and it needs to be, the GIS mapping has to be done, and the government has to announce the benefits and the 99-year lease or the 30-year or 40-year short-term leases for these MSMEs, which will definitely help. Coming to your question on the labor reforms, I would prefer more of a national labor reform than of a provincial labor reform. The reason being is if I have a plant in both in Gujarat and in Maharashtra, and one labor reform of 48 hours working in Maharashtra and 52 or 55 hours working in Gujarat will not, put me in the even platform. So, the labor reforms have to be on a national level and it has to be on an equal platform. And liquidity, yes, it's very key. Whatever the benefits or whatever the stimulus packages announced, maybe it is not direct benefit to the MSMEs, but there is one very key area. If we even remember our minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari mentioned about a few days back, is the 5 lakh crores which the government owes to all these MSMEs. That is a huge amount. In fact, these people doesn't want loan. A loan is required only for a flourishing organization or for an company which has good order situation. But today's it's a historic, unprecedented situation. If they get back their own money, I think that will help them a lot. So this is my point on land, labor, and liquidity.
Right. Hemanji, MSMEs, they say you may have muscles, but the body requires blood. And just as the blood is required in the body, that's what they say is the significance of MSMEs in India. What would you add to that, Hemanji?
I think, Rajesh, you nailed it in your question itself. See, there's one way to look at it. See, the funds which are available from the banks or the package which is there, one has to look at it from a different perspective. Well, for me, almost 45% to 50% of my suppliers are MSMEs.
Right.
Okay? So my payment cycle to them is fixed to 45 days. Whereas when I am supplying to my customer, I get a stretched limit. So in order to make this blood flow without this blockage, the government should have given us the money to support to MSME by a special act instead of giving MSME a direct access.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have reduced our creditors on one side, and at the same time, we would have got the access to the right capital which we need today.
Mm-hmm.
This is one. Second is a separate bank like NABARD, if it is created for exclusive MSMEs. I think Mr. Sunil pointed this out very clearly, that the large, like say State Bank of India, they have a priority where they have to service. If one customer comes to their door, knock 1 lakh crore maybe loan sanction, their agenda is finished. But if there are 10 MSMEs coming, it's a problem. So if a separate bank is created to finance the MSMEs, it will be really, really great step. The another thing which you asked Mr. Muthusekharan, and he also pointed it out very clearly, is the vocal for local, or Atmanirbhar, and the self-reliant India. Mr. Modi brought in very, very important point, and this is going to happen if you have listened to Mr. Donald Trump also. He's also talking about this. So this is a wave. Over dependency on the present supply chain of pure China is greatly impacting the world, and this everybody has realized. So there will be definitely an attempt by every country to be more self-reliant, and India, I think, will be no exception. So Indian government, the steps that government has taken to free up the sectors most important: coal, nuclear, space, defense. Huge investment will come.
Right.
And it will support the MSMEs to grow, because up to 75% we are allowing for foreign direct investment in these fields. You can imagine the kind of investment that this country is going to pull in. One point I would like to touch upon is the labor reform, which Mr. Muthusekharan talked about. As he rightly pointed out, the labor laws, we have 2 tiers, one is the central, second is the state.
Right.
There are 4 or 5 BJP ruled states who have smartly and swiftly acted in this particular lockdown, because there will not be any agitation of the labor unions to free up some of the labor laws. But if we take a comprehensive step from the government of India in this direction, it will help this country to a very, very large extent.
Right.
The land parcels, I believe, are going to be made available. For example, government of Maharashtra, they themselves said that 40,000 acres they are going to allot for new industries. They are also allowing industries to go for rental schemes if you don't have capital. So a lot of things are coming up. I think COVID-19, in other side, it has shaken up this usual way of thinking.
Right.
And it has given impetus to new thinking. And this is what we are seeing as a new package. Every state government, union government has announced that they will be ranking the state governments in ease of doing business.
Right.
Which is an important step. So with that, there will be an internal homogeneous competition.
Right. Right.
Wherein the governments will come forward. So I think we are moving in the right direction, in the right place.
Right. Thank you, panelists, for the feedback. Now, let's see what the audience feels about this. So we'll go to our next poll now. And this poll is, will MSME sector benefit from the stimulus package? So the options are yes, no, and the third option is need more support. So votes are coming. Let's just wait for some time for the feedback from the audience. So another few seconds for the audience to complete the voting. In fact, it's clearly going in one direction, what we are seeing. So I think we'll close the poll now. So in fact, the majority of the audience feels that the MSME needs more support. And what the government has done, yes, it will certainly help the MSMEs, but the MSMEs need more support as per our audience. And we'll quickly run through one more poll question before we go into the next round. Now, would the stimulus package drive the Make in India program? So here we have the option of yes, no, and more initiatives needed from the government. So let's see what our audience feel about it. So again, it is going more in one direction. We'll just give it a few more seconds before we close this poll. Yes, we can close the poll now. So if we see the results of this poll, would the stimulus package drive the Make in India program? So people feel more initiatives are needed, but yes, certainly it's a step in the right direction. So friends, coming back to our discussion now, as we started the discussion, yes, we had these MSME package, and there were a lot of reform packages also. Now, challenging times are excellent opportunity to question accepted way of doing things. As Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. The government has pushed through some crucial reforms, which perhaps because of political compulsions may not have been possible earlier. And certainly the government has utilized COVID to push through these reforms. And let us go into the depth of let us go into some of these reforms, which will also, I think, have a benefit for the industry. And here I would request our panelists to give some details into the reforms. And let me perhaps first start with Mr. Muthusekar. Mr. Muthusekar, if you can let us know about the reforms in the food and agriculture sector, and in your view, how will these reforms benefit the industry, Mr. Muthusekar? Mr. Muthusekar, you just have to, you're not audible. Yeah, if you can.
I have done it, Mr. Nath. This is the real googly, because neither I come from the agriculture background or my company supports the agriculture industry.
But you have the user industries in the food industry, Mr. Muthusekar.
Yes, industries in the food industry and beverages industry.
Right.
Yes, 1 lakh crore fund allocated for strengthening the farm gate infra like cold chains, storages, silos to boost the harvest storages is a welcome move. The reason being is a lot of food produced, food grains or fruits, whichever is produced, it could not cross the borders from from one province to another province. Sometimes it goes waste. So even earlier, Supreme Court also has mentioned that a lot of silos and a lot of storages have to be there. So the spending of this 1 lakh crore, I think it is in line with the budget, because if you look at the budget, what was presented a few months ago, it was talking of 102 trillion rupees, in the recent budget, and there was about 1% of the capital expenditure was going towards agriculture, which is about for the year period of 20 to 25. It is exactly 1.02 trillion rupees for this agri and food processing infrastructure. So it is in the same lines, and the physical impact of this could be somewhere around 30,000 crores, during this period. And the Essential Commodities Act, which they are trying to amend, and the agriculture to allow free flow to produce and sell it across the states. I think it is a very welcome move, because the agriculture products, moving from one province to another province, always have few issues because they are forced to sell only to the local market or the signed, places. And also another area which government must look at is basically on the fuel and the road toll tax. The reason being is if the product has to move from in a place of 500-kilometer range, the cost of the toll and the cost of the fuel is going to be it's going to impact, and that might even rise up the inflation also. So the government has to look at how the agriculture products can be supported either through a e-toll system with a minimum rate and special prices for the fuel. Something like that has to be thought about. This will definitely go in the right way. And particularly talking of the farmers, I think one point I would like to mention is that the statistics says about 3 lakh farmers have suicide in the last 2 decades. And out of the 3 lakh, if you look at 15.04 is loan issues, 1.77% is losses, 2.65% is debt burden, 16.84 is failure of crops, and 1% is failure of borewell, and the price crash is 2.65%. So if you accumulate all this, 40% nearly comes from the business losses. Right. That means whatever they produce, they are not able to sell, they are not able to make money. So if you look at this 40%, and if you look at it counts to around 1.2 lakh people. In fact, I would say COVID-19 is nothing in front of this. 1,20,000 people who have suicide only on the losses point of view. So I think this reform is the most welcome reform, and it will definitely help the troops to go from one border to another border. Plus, also respectable prices they will get.
Right. And also, I think, Mr. Muthusekar, removing the middlemen, I think, so that the farmer directly gets the benefit. I think this will be one of the biggest advantages of this reform. Although
I think you rightly mentioned that political system would have not supported them to take these reforms had the sessions on. but now, this really helped. But this is welcome because, at the end of the day, a producer has to get the price. If he doesn't get the price, and, because of this, he has to even, end his life. I think that is a huge disaster. And for a country which agriculture is the number one engine for the economy.
Right, right. And as you correctly pointed out also, Mr. Muthusekar, 40% of the suicide cases are because of loss of business. So I think at least that to a large extent can be addressed by this reform. So thank you. Thank you for these inputs, Mr. Muthusekar. Vivek, coming to you now, mining sector reforms. These have been also one of the major reforms that have taken place in the mining sector. So if you could briefly highlight these reforms and also give your views on how these mining sector reforms will help the industry also, Vivek. Vivek, you're not. Yeah, that's right, Vivek. Now you're audible. Yeah. Vivek, here mic is on, so if you can just, unmute yourself. Yes, Vivek. Yeah, Vivek, you could start.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, Rajesh. Yes, I could. Yeah, thank you for giving that over to me. So very insightful thoughts for the rest of our panelists, particularly on the agri sector. I think very insightful. And I think just as you said, take the opportunity of the crisis, and that's the dichotomy of this crisis, right? With every challenge that appears, you have a lot of opportunities which emerge. And I think there's no better time that government picks up some of these. And particularly in the mining sector has been a subject of great debate and discussion. Right. And there are a lot of sub-elements to it, and it comes to the background of what are the targets that the government have had, particularly pertaining to coal. So they were talking about increasing production of coal from about 650 million tons to 1 billion. Now, how would one do that? And within a certain timeline. So yes, here's a great opportunity. And I think what they've done now in terms of opening out this sector for commercial mining opens out one fundamental opportunity, but I think the key is here it brings out competitiveness. Well, if you've got to be competitive, you've got to be efficient, you've got to bring in technology, and you've got to put all your wherewithals to make a way of doing things different and be far more economical than what you do. And I think one of the noticeable thing is they've also given a big boost to the excavation side of the business. And there's a lot of industries, equipment manufacturer who are exposed to that side of business besides the whole aspect of bringing labor as well. So pretty much in the lines of how the agri aspect is, yes, I think this is also a very important element and a good opportunity to bring about this move in the mining, particularly in the coal.
Right. Thank you, Vivek. I think, again, a very valid point is that because we've had a lot, this discussion has been going on since quite a few years to open up mining for non-captive utilization, because till now it was the private companies could only do mining for captive utilization. So I think certainly, again, this step is a reform measure, and through that, as you correctly said, the whole mining activity should increase, and also the government spending that has gone into excavation, I think that will also help in giving a boost to the mining activity. From coal or mining, we move now to power, and Hemanji, I would like to ask you, there have been also reforms in the power sector. So if you could highlight some of the reforms there, and again also give your views on how the reforms in power sector would also benefit the industry, Hemanji.
Yeah. The first reform which has been announced is the DISCOM inefficiency will not be passed on to the consumer. And this will make the DISCOMs more efficient. The losses in the grid will reduce to a great extent, which will ultimately benefit the end users. Number two, what they have also done is today we are allowed to free trade the power officially, but practically there are many difficulties. The transmission lines are still in the clutches of the governments. state governments. So this reform of allowing private players to have a dedicated and separate power transmission lines to distribute the power is greatly going to benefit.
Right.
So these two aspects are the ones. The third thing, if you recall Mr. Modi's talk, he said the International Solar Alliance. I think India, the way the government is setting up the solar panel manufacturing facilities, which will help us to harness the solar energy and in turn reduce the dependency on the fossil fuels to some extent,
Right.
and allow us also to export the solar panels as well as the solar power pump sets, because I'm a pump manufacturer, to the countries where the International Solar Alliance is active, particularly in Africa, will open up these new doors for export opportunity. So in these three areas, I believe the government has done in this particular span a real wonderful job,
Right.
particularly from the power segment reforms.
Thank you, Hemantji, and I think it'll make the whole system more efficient. Also, whether we talk about distribution, generation, hopefully things would become much more efficient then. Thank you. And Anil, coming to you now, the defense sector also there's been reforms also in the defense sector. And if you could just highlight, Anil, the reforms in the defense sector. And also, I think these reforms would be of benefit to the industry also, Anil. Anil, could you just unmute yourself, Anil? Yeah. Yeah. Anil, please unmute yourself, then you could continue. Yeah, Anil. अनिल सुनाई नहीं दे रहा आपका, if you could हाँ जी I think Anil is having some issue. In the meantime, Anil, I will, or is it clear now? Yes. No, here it is. Anil, it is showing self-muted.
Mr. Nath, would you want me to respond to that?
Yes. Okay. That'll be fine then.
Okay. So as you said earlier, due to COVID-19, lot of I'm unmuted.
हाँ अनिल जी बोलिए अभी. Yes अनिल. Yeah. हाँ अनिल आप बोलिए, सुनाई दे रहा.
So can you hear me?
Yes, Anil, we can hear you well.
Mute.
हाँ अनिल बोलिए जी, सुन रहा आपका.
Okay. So am I audible?
ठीक है अनिल, we'll wait for some time. आपका उतना clear नहीं है. Let me come to Sunil ji now. Sunil ji, even the aviation sector, actually there are a lot of reforms that have been announced in the aviation sector, and I think aviation sector also plays an important role for logistic and material handling. So if you could just highlight Anil, Sunil ji, the reforms in the aviation sector.
Yeah, having working with this particular sector closely, Rajesh, I think the announcement of 3 key initiatives concerning the aviation sector, of course, welcome steps. And rather, I would say they were long awaited by the industry friends when we talk with them.
Right.
The move to invite 6 more airports under PPP route
Yeah.
will
So now
provide
is it
Airport
okay?
Authority of India. Hello.
Hanji, Sunil ji,
Hello.
continue. Yes.
Yeah, I think the move to invite 6 more airports in that PPP route will provide airport authority to further make these airports efficient and have a better facilities. But I think the bigger benefit is with the private investment on these 6 airports, airport authority will have a lot of resources to spend on a smaller airport and develop them better. I think each bigger airport can contribute the kind of money which government can make another 6 smaller airport. We can make them efficient. So I think that investing on 6 airport, we are talking in terms of making efficient and better facility at least 24, 25 airports, and that's a big number according to me.
Right.
Then going to the next point, which the government has very clearly stated, and there is a lot of thing I could see, that is the MRO hub. The plan to make India MRO hub will help us in saving, of course, the forex, but I think the bigger benefit is on upgradation of technology vision. And therefore, the biggest upside, which we all be talking about, how the demand will create it, the bigger upside will come on job creation, because this will be creating a lot of jobs. And and another benefit that I could see from there is development of a strong value chain with civil and defense business interface. You know, for defense, we also take a lot of things, and civil, normally we don't combine this, but where MRO hub coming in place, at least I could see very strong development of civil and defense business interface. And of course, the airports, higher airports, airspace utilization will help us in, as stated by FM also, the cost reduction and very, very good environment friendly. And I think this is, nobody should be complaining, at least on reform side of the government stand on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunilji. We'll try to come back to Anil. Anil, yes, we wanted to hear your views on the defense sector, Anil. अनिल आप जरा अभी सुना हाँ प्लीज बोलिए अनिल if you are yeah Anil, just unmute yourself from your side. You are unmuted here. You have to unmute from your side. हाँ जी बोलिए अनिल. I think there are some internet issues. We'll go on to the poll then. In the meantime, we'll come back to Anil a little later. We'll go to the next poll. So here we wanted to ask our audience, in fact, what they feel, which sector, the reforms, which are the sectors which have benefited the most from the reforms: mining, agriculture and food, power, defense and aviation. So let's see what our audience feels, which has impacted the most. So a few seconds more and then we'll close the poll. So if let's close the poll and see what the audience feels. So as per the audience, actually, the reforms would have maximum benefit for the agriculture and food sector. So 57% feel it will have a positive impact on agriculture, food sector, and then defense 17% and 13% feel for the mining sector. Thank you, audience, for that, for your feedback here. Anil, are you audible? Can you hear us?
Hello, yes, I can hear you. I
Haji,
don't know
Haji.
why I'm not able
Yeah,
to
now it's clear, Anil. Now let
connect
me come
from
to
my
you.
side.
Yeah, Anil, let me come to you now. In fact, the machine tool and the cutting tool industry, the automotive sector is a big customer. Now, Indian automotive industry supports employment of about 3.7 crore people and contributes almost 15% to the GST amounting. So this sector now has been facing an unprecedented change. In fact, there was a 18% degrowth of this sector. And there is also, as per SIAM's figures, in fact, this sector would go down somewhere between 22 to 35%. Now, Anil, in this whole stimulus package, do you think there is something for the revival of the auto sector also, Anil?
I think there is nothing which is direct, but indirect benefits are already there. Like the labor reforms and the benefit extended to SMEs. So they should indirectly help the auto sectors in lowering down the cost.
Right.
And since seeing the future, the more focus is on e-mobility and the regular cars and all that. The production is reduced due to the focus on e-mobility. That is why you see a lot of reduction in the sales of the cars. And in future, due to these reforms, I think that sector will get boosted. And another benefit, what is going to come is, what is expected is the reliability of supply chain management by the other countries on China is going to change. And I think India is going to get benefited with lot of orders from these countries. So for auto components and the exports are going to definitely increase. So that way, though the projection is from SIAM may come to be correct or may not be correct, but I think with the boost to the auto sector and exports, this will get compensated to a large extent.
Right.
So that is my feeling as of now.
Right.
So that's what. And coming back to the earlier question for defense,
Right.
maybe two lines I like to say.
Sure, Anil.
With the policy reform on FDI from 49% to 71%, I think that is a great reform, especially to the defense, and that will also boost greatly Make in India and self-reliance. And lot of spares. See, we do a lot of imports and all that, and then we are too much dependent for the spares on these countries, and this will definitely boost the production and self-reliability on the spares, and India will become more self-reliant in this sense, and more employment will be encouraged with this, and investments and benefits to SMEs will happen. So overall, I think it is a good package on these sectors.
Thank you, Anil. And actually, going forward from what Anil also mentioned, now coming to Hemantji and Vivek. So the stimulus package has been termed Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan to lead to Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is, build a self-reliant India. Now, does that imply that India would start looking inwards, and would you call it a move from globalization to localization? These are strong statements, but what do you feel?
I think you said it right. See, the point is, it's easy to say that Atmanirbhar Bharat means only that we should be self-reliant and we should not look at the outside opportunities. No, it's not like that. See, there will be some segments where a company, say from Germany, will have to then produce in India or selling it in India, which is a big step.
Yeah.
And for that, the government is taking the right measures. So we have to see the linkage from that perspective. The second thing is, yes, over dependency of supply chain on one particular country or elements is always vulnerable. One day or the other, it would have resulted in a big collapse. So in my opinion, this has taught the world a brutal lesson that look, you have to have self-sufficient to a certain extent. World will always remain globalized. It will not change. Right. See, this kind of COVID crisis will come and go. If after 6 months or 8 months, I'm good, but I'm having that feeling that we will not even talk. What is this COVID?
Right, right.
This human race is brilliant enough to overcome these hurdles.
Right.
So we will soon forget this.
Right.
But then in this period, what all foundations we lay will be helpful for the future.
Yeah.
And that is exactly where Atmanirbhar Bharat, where, for example, Mr. Modi was telling the N95 masks, we were not producing because it was not required. But today we can produce 50,000.
Right.
We can produce even the swabs, that stick which is there. We are able to produce in Jamnagar or some part in Gujarat, saving millions of rupees. We are able to produce our own ventilation machines, ventilators. What does it mean? We had the capability, but we were not using it to actually make it. Rather, we were opening the doors for foreigners to come and sell. Now, this will stop. But the high technology products, there will be an encouragement and a boost for making it in India. And that is where exactly I said that there is a percolation theory. And the supply chain also will be established within the country. And the supply chain will be mostly MSME. With this MSME booster, I believe the MSMEs will be able to improve their machinery, quality standards, checking equipment, their skill sets, and in turn able to supply to the higher demands, growing demands of the end customers. So in a nutshell, the COVID has really put us on such a forefront that Atmanirbhar Bharat will make this country generate billions of jobs. And this is what is actually required. We will have another 5 months, 6 months lag. There will be people who have migrant levels have gone back. There are still fear, uncertainties, but this will all go. This will all settle. We have to look for the future. And when we look at the future, I believe we have a great future with these reformatory steps coming at the right time.
Thank you, Hemanji. Very optimistic views. Let's see, Vivek, are your views also in the similar direction? Vivek, you just have to unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
Yeah. You got me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to be agreeing with my colleague there, but I think it might make it interesting for a discussion if I critique him a little bit there. Just for us, I mean, it's an open panel talk. When you mentioned that statement, I looked up on the web and there were 7 pointers on what that points out. I will not go into every one of it. So I'll pick up what kind of appeased me a little bit. Right. So one of them is about tech-driven education. Whatever that means in the fine print, I think, upskilling, if that is a word to put in place, besides basic education, right, and upskilling at a scalable level, we are talking about mass systems here, right, and technology provides the ability to reach and upskill our people. I mean, let's face the facts. I mean, you put one of our Indian engineers against one among the developed countries. You guys take your salespeople to global meetings, right? And I don't know what you feel. You always have a challenge to look up, are they the best among the best? There is room for upskilling there at different levels, I would say. I think that's a great plan. But you know what? When you look at all these 7 points, it's great to have them on board. And I think in all our companies, we tell the simple things. It's wonderful to make great plans. It's okay to make an average plan, but the brilliance is in executing it well. So I think the key is really to kind of execute, even if you have an average plan, to go forward and thrive in times of these crises. What are we looking for as a country, as an industry segment? We're looking at being resilient in spite of what is happening around the world. Now that resilience will come if you are able to boost domestic capabilities and domestic consumption. When consumption will happen, if you have people having money in their hands. Now, how do you put that whole, throw things in hand? We're also coming from word of German companies where we say cheap cannot be the best. Ironically, it is. We have to catch up with that. We go to any of the hotels in Southeast Asia, you get these 5-star hotels where you pay 3-star hotel prices in India, right? So you get cost at a quality. Now, why is it that we are not getting that? It's because I think one of the elements which is touched in the 7th point is about ease of doing business. I think we have to face up to the fact that is it really easy to do business in India? I think some hard topics have to be touched. Now, there are so many barriers which adds to the cost, and who pays for it? It's the customer who pays for it. So that lets you cost competitive. Let me touch another sensitive topic here. I think if you face up to the facts, and I do not know, as industry experts as well as the government, we put our acts together, we can get there. What is the image of an Indian produced product outside of India? Right? We hear about Chinese quality and all of that, and we're talking about supply chain dependence on China. Now, why do we do that dependence on China? Because we are not competitive ourselves in many of those areas. We have the capabilities, we have the understanding. Like Hemant said, yeah, we can produce all those masks, but can we produce at that scale with consistent quality at a competitive price? I think we have to critique ourselves. We have some structural challenges, skill challenges as well, to be able to scale up what we are doing at a competitive level. Whether that can be at a company level, at an industry supported level, or a government level. So there are many areas. You can see that as critical areas, or you can look at as areas of opportunities for us to be able to become resilient. So yeah, the 7 pointers are very, very necessary pointers, and I think the proof of the pudding is in eating it, how the government, the industry segments, and companies themselves pick these pointers to implement for us to be competitive.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I think a different view of thought, but interesting, Vivek. Maybe let me come to the last question, since we are running a little out of time, but I think very interesting discussion. Mr. Muthusekhar and Mr. Sunil Gupta. If you look at as a percentage of GDP, actually, if you look at the stimulus package, we are only spending about 1.2 or 1.3% of the GDP. Now, given that 60% of India's economy is a consumer-driven economy, and we are not China, which is an investment-driven economy, 60% of the economy needs help. And this is actually where only a part of the money is going. So the center's 20 lakh crore package, would it really help to boost consumption? Because we need something big happening in a short period of time. Consumption that will increase in a short period. And that is the question mark that is in many minds, that package is good, stimulus is good, a lot of reforms also may come in, but is it going to drive the consumption? And maybe I will start with Mr. Muthusekhar first. Mr. Muthusekhar, what do you feel about this?
Yes, this is a huge, unprecedented problem. So the magnitude is also high, and whatever stimulus package given by the government, which always will be, will be a shortfall, and there will be a lot of solutions, a lot of advices given. I can cite one example. Delhi Chief Minister recently asked, suggestions for, opening the lockdown. He received 5 lakh suggestions. So even reading the 5 lakh suggestions, we may not be able to. So the magnitude is completely different. So whatever package released, may or may not be, sufficient. This is true, and we have to live with reality. But one thing, when we talk about consumerization, I think as a simple economics, what I understand is, if it is a consumer economy, for this type of economy, you must produce the products and the consumer must have the money to buy. This is the consumerization economy what we are talking about. But currently that is not there. Why it is not there? It is because of the fear factor. Even if people have the money today, they will not go and spend that money today. Even if the government had given, let us talk of 15,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees, or any amount of rupee to the person, they cannot go and spend the money today because of the fear factor. The psychological fear has to be removed. It will take some time, maybe a month or 2 or 3. Like Hemant said, it could be 3 to 6 months, but we have to wait for it. But the government job, the industry's job, the organizations like Indo-German, like VDMA, US, speakers like us, we have to help in removing this fear. The moment we remove this fear, the consumerization will take place. And yes, if you talk of the packages, why it is not sufficient? Because if you look at the aviation industry, which is terribly hit, there is nothing, only a reform is available, but nothing, doling out at this moment is not available. We talk of auto industries that is, even hit before the COVID pandemic, but that also, you don't have any kind of immediate stimulus package. If I have to put it like this, the package in a simple way, a patient needs a surgery today, but he has been given a pill, he has been given a tablet, but hopefully let us understand this pill or the tablet what is given is a painkiller, and it is like a stabilizer for the patient, and eventually the surgery will happen and some more stimulus packages will come at a later date. So this is what I would like to sum up on the the stimulus package sufficient point of view.
Thank you, Mr. Buddhasekar. And for the last word from Mr. Sunil Gupta, Sunilji, is this the oxygen that the economy needed?
Well, Rajesh, just to build on what has been stated by others, and working with a large multinational company, having access to some of the best inputs coming from various consultants in the world, the idea, I will just try to decipher what exactly is going around and what is in the mind of the policymakers as of now.
Right.
I think very strongly, I have a feeling the crisis is not providing much of the headroom to the government. Reasons could be any, reason could be economy, compulsion, or reason could be, our healthcare system, but there is not much of a headroom for the government right now. The option in front of the government was, or is, to either spend on big amounts now, to roll out, or to try to secure the future through reforms. We are all talking good about the reform. These are the two options which government has think. And I think the government is looking more inclined in securing the route of structural reforms. And the announcements so far are really looking right in steps for mid and long-term basis. There should not be much of a complaint anybody on that matter. Of course, these steps will not boost the demand on a short-term basis. If you all agree, we fully agree on this. When majority of the population is sitting inside their homes and the population is only spending money on essential, consumption and demand will be missing. You can't have a demand in that case. Government, of course, have the option to increase demand with rolling out schemes and increasing expenditure, but I don't think government is taking this route of spend. Every economist is talking about spend is the route which the government should take. I think they are capitalizing on the opportunity and not willing to waste this crisis. That's what the option they have taken. As option, we could have very deep recession this year. I think so with this route, we could have very deep recession. Again and again, rating agencies are dropping over GDP ratio, and that's what the resultant of this. And by next year, I think because of this deep structural reform, will make a very fast comeback. This is what it's very clearly visible. However, implementation ruthlessly is the key of these reforms. If we really have to gain out of this, then there should not be any issue as regard to ruthlessness. Having said so, I must add on to 2-3 points how we can make it better. India must rise to the occasion. As other speakers are talking about, there is opportunity, and I think it is a last opportunity window to compete in the global market. And the government is looking, as of now, I think very, very supportive, so that we can all work on that side. First and foremost, all of us to know how the virus can impact our business and decisions we make. We must know, how we are getting impacted and what we need to do. Company needs to understand what customer value in post-COVID era, and there is a need to design redesign our operation and supply chains accordingly, because this is certainly going for change. Whatever you are doing, as other speakers are talking about, it's definitely going to change. I mean, the new norm has to come in place. And lastly, I think the most important of dynamic economy is to have health recovery ecosystem trust. The people, those are sitting inside out of fear, they should have a trust that we have a very robust and trustworthy health system outside. This will help people to come out of their home faster, and they will come out and make expenditure and consumption and demand will flow. At the same time, let us not forget, we are 65% consumption-based economy, and we have to leverage that under all circumstances. Thank you from my side.
Thank you, Sunilji. I think that sums it up very well. And thank you to all the panelists for the frank and open discussion. We would quickly go through two more poll questions from the audience. And the next one is, will the stimulus package boost employment generation? So let's see what the audience feels. And it's turning out to be a very close race this time. I think we are, the response is quite close actually. People are deliberating. We'll give it a few more seconds just to get a clear picture if we have a clear winner. Okay, we'll close the poll now, and as you will see from the results, so sharing the poll results, actually it's very close between yes and not sure. So almost it's divided. 38% feel they're not sure whether it will lead to employment generation, but there are a lot of positives also. 36% feel that it will boost employment generation, which is a very good sign. And we'll quickly go to the next poll question also.
At least the not sure is very less.
So the next question is, to boost the revival, what does the industry need at this stage? Demand, liquidity, and availability of labor force. So let's see here what people are, what is the opinion of the people. And here I think we are seeing a very clear trend actually. So here if we, so we will close this poll, and so as per the audience, to boost the revival, what is required now is the demand. So the biggest requirement is actually demand, followed by liquidity and then availability of labor force. Yeah, so that was the feedback from the audience, and actually there are a lot of questions that have flowed in. We won't be able to take all of them, but just a couple of them. Now, one is also of the audience has expressed concern that with the people, the migrant laborers going back, is there a possibility that the labor force will come back in the next 2 to 3 months? And how are the companies handling this? Those, I don't know, among our panelists, maybe I'll request Sunilji to say a few words on that. Sunilji, since you have a large workforce also. Yeah. Yeah. So Sunilji, if you could, this thing concern is whether the labor force will come back. Just 1 minute, Mr. Sunilji. Sunilji, you're muted. Yeah, now you can start, Sunil. Yeah.
I'm not able. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's clear, Sunil. Yeah.
Uh, okay. Look. It's a question which is very complicated as of now, and the answer will vary from state to state, in my opinion, because I have been talking with a lot of industries and the community, and I feel that's why I'm making this answer is a little bit difficult from that perspective. But I feel uh, 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 industry, at least in Maharashtra, I have seen industry has come forward the moment the COVID, I mean, the close down was happening. They came forward. They were looking after very religiously, providing food, money, shelter to the labor force, and they were really taking care of them. And in spite of all this thing, the moment things were opening up, we have seen this exodus. The people have started going back. Today, at our end, we are facing around 50% shortage of those people. Now, in order to run the industries, because as such you are being allowed to run one shift, and because you need to close down before 7, therefore the issue is you can't run a manufacturing process industry with the help of a 50% team. You need to have people, and you need to fill your line so that you take benefit out of that. So I think even if they start coming back after 2 or 3 months, there will be lesser availability of those roles for them, because most of the temporary position people will fill from the local. Second would be the Manrega 40% additional sum has been provided. The government is clear because they want to give the employment possibility and the food possibility to people at their place. So with these three things coming, I think the urge of coming back from other side will also be low.
Right, right. Maybe Hemanji, would you like to add something to that of the labor force coming back, possibility of labor force coming back after a few months?
Well, the labor force will be a division, I would say. There will be few who would not risk their lives in bigger cities like Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, where they will say that my life is more important than having to face this kind of a situation or uncertainty hereafter. But there will be, of course, at least 50% who will come back. But by that time, as Mr. Sunil has rightly pointed out, the local force will take these positions. Number one. Number two, the migrant laborers are really putting us in a problem, particularly in the non-core areas, particularly transportation, logistics, even the ports. The ports are open, but we are not able to get the consignments out, or we are not able to make the make FCLs. FCL is fine, but LCL you can't do it because there's a long queue. So there will be definitely a lag because it's fear-driven factor. But more or less, I would say another factor is the clustering of the industries, because today the industries grows in a cluster where they have congenial workforce, the availability of allied industries, and this will be more prominent. The decentralization of industry may not take place in the future because of this issue which has happened in the short term. So to sum up, I believe the migrant labor, yes, 3 to 6 months it will take for them to come back. By that time, the industry might have adjusted themselves a little bit. The industries would opt for more automation so as to reduce the dependency on such kind of labor. But 1 year down the line, the situation will again come back to normal. This is my expectation.
Right. Thank you, Hemanji. Mr. Muthusekhar, now we were talking about the MSME sector. So there's an interesting question. This question states that the sort of the benefits that are being provided to MSME, or also loan being provided, collaterals. Now this will help them if they are in expansion mode. But in the present scenario, since demand is less, the MSMEs are not going to be in expansion mode. So do you think the liquidity what is being provided to them, would it help them to cope with the lower demand?
See, if you look at the MSME, I think Sunil mentioned in the initial opening statement, it is about 63 million MSMEs are there. Out of 63 million, close to around 62.9 million is basically the micro industries,
Right.
and 0.33 million is the small industries, and only about 5,000 are medium industries. So basically, the loan required for micro industries, they're all self-sufficient, self-reliant, and most of them are first-generation run companies. This is also another reason why they are not able to do an expansion, because the second generation doesn't comes in, and then they are not able to cross the borders. So if you look at their problems are slightly different. What they need is basically they need recognition for their innovation. If they're having an innovative product that needs to cross the borders, it needs to be exported. And second is they need kind of incentives and supports. Basically, the reforms will more help than the kind of loan and the liquidity. In my opinion, I mentioned in my earlier statement that 5 lakh crore is the due from the government to the MSMEs. If this money is given, I think this our country is a land of dignity. Even agriculture, or you take anything, if you get back your money, I think that's more important than a new loan and getting into a debt trap.
Right. Thank you. Perhaps the last question, let me come to Vivek and Anil. Now, does the COVID, would it lead to more? Now we are seeing one is the COVID impact, then we are also facing with the labor problem. So the question here is, would it sort of help the companies to think to go for more automation? What do you feel? Maybe we'll take the last comments, Vivek and Anil. If you could just, Vivek, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know what the general saying goes, when there is a time of growth, when we are looking at acquiring business and growing, typically a lot of inefficiencies also tend to creep into organizations. So we have so much focus on acquiring business and getting that out and collecting cash. So we're not some of those low-hanging things are not bothered about. And this is a time when it's an opportunity to look at some of those inefficient areas, be it your lean projects, being anything. I mean, digital is a very fanciful word, but anything which can optimize and reflect to see where you can knock off those areas of inefficiencies. So yeah, I think it's a great time to look at automation in many different angles. In the end, the baseline should be that you need to be far more efficient, cost competitive, and you should be able to kind of be a reliable supplier to the marketplace. So with these two priorities, any level of automation in the process or equipment, I think every company is looking at, and I think most of our peer group companies here are indeed as well.
Right. Thank you, Vivek. Last comment, Anil. Any comment from your side? Do you think this will lead to some increased level of automation? Anil, you have to unmute yourself. Hanji, Anil, just unmute yourself and then you could speak. Yeah. I think there are some issues. Anil is.
Yeah. Rajesh, I can give a live example on this.
Right. Yes, please. Yeah. And
yeah, I would say that having a world largest automation company on our side, that is Dematic, right? We are actually seeing a worldwide rise in automation inquiries, including India. Because everybody is talking the buzzword, the touchless economy, touchless handling.
yes.
So therefore, there is no doubt the automation has a very, very good future for wherever we see this opportunity, including India.
Right. Mr. Muthusekar, you wanted to add something? Yeah. Yeah. Hanji.
Um, some new areas of automation will take place. Like for example, in construction industry, the least automated place where the employees or the laborers work very close to each other in a building construction or in an infrastructure building. But here, I expect some kind of automation will take place, and this will also happen in food and beverage industries because that human touch point, what Sunil mentioned. Less people touching the products and packaging. I think new areas will come up, and like what you mentioned is in the beginning, Churchill's statement is very interesting. I think crises have to be taken as an opportunity, and we see a lot of digitalization, a lot of automation. In fact, I even see artificial intelligence coming in airport baggage handling.
Right.
Like for example, the particular the person will not unload the bag and load the bag in the carousel. It will be automatically channelized from the plane directly to the carousel number 4 for the Pune flight and carousel number 5 for the Lucknow flight. That's a kind of artificial intelligence will come. I think there will be new areas of automation taking place, which even we may not be even at this moment even knowing. Many things will happen.
Right. Anil, now is it maybe last word? We'll try once last with Anil. Hanji, Anil. No. Somehow I think Anil, there is some issue we are not able to. Anyway, I would like to. With that, I think we will conclude the panel discussion. Yes, Anil. Yeah. बोलिए अभी आ रहा? Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, Anil, बोलिए जी.
I'm able to hear you, but are you able to hear me?
हाँ जी, अभी सुन रहे हैं. जल्दी से last this thing. Last
Okay, so
comment.
I agree with everyone.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of industries, and some level of automation will definitely increase. And not only automation, remote working and electronics. This will definitely be promoted. And as everyone said, touchless technology. And we also do a lot of automation in our production. So wherever it is possible, further increase will happen. So in manufacturing sectors, as well as in other sectors, this portion will definitely get a boost.
Right. Thank you, Anil. And I would like to thank all our panelists and maybe also inform that the platform, we had 2.5 times the number of registrations as the platform can accept. And within when we went live, within 28 seconds, we were full house. What the platform. So I think thank you very much, the panelists, and the concluding perhaps remarks from my side. The measures announced by the government would be a mix of short-term and long-term, with focus on building the capabilities for the small players in the economy, as well as paving the way for structural changes in certain sectors, as you all have also mentioned. The reforms are anticipated to provide an impetus to those sectors which are new areas of growth, unleash new investment opportunities, lead to more production, and in turn generate more jobs. However, I think still the big question remains is, will the Big Bang financial package be the silver lining at the end of India's stormy night? I think only time will tell as we go forward. And at this juncture, I would also like to thank all our panelists for the open and frank discussion. I would like to thank Himanshu also for giving us a very good overview on the stimulus package. I'm grateful to all our members who participated in such large numbers for the webinar today. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have put together this platform and organizing this webinar. And let me conclude with a quote. A pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. So like the optimist, let us look for opportunities in this complex stimulus package. Stay safe, friends. Stay well. Thank you very much for joining us for the webinar. And thank you very much for all the inputs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.